good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to a meeting where we're going to talk about developments on the ABC chain, and we're going to discuss some of the projects that are going on. And we have with us some of the key developers on the ABC chain. So I'd like to start with introductions, and on my top left from ABC, I have Antony Zegers. Could you give us a brief introduction, Antony?
Oh, okay. I mean, you pretty much introduced me already. I'm Antony Zegers. I'm known as Hungarian online, and yeah, I'm with Bitcoin ABC, and I guess I've been involved with it since like 2017, prior to Bitcoin Cash being created and all that. So I've been around for a while,
Okay.
and yeah, I'm just working on Bitcoin ABC, trying to help, do all the various stuff we're doing.
Safe to say you're a big part of the team, so thank you for being here today. Next on my right, I have Pierre. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm Pierre Knobel. I joined Bitcoin ABC in late September this year, 2020. I was following the Bitcoin Cash community for at least since late 2017, and I was interested in Bitcoin for a few more years than that. At the moment I'm helping with the node software, and I'm also working on ElectrumABC.
Excellent. Thank you, Pierre. Next, I have Joey King.
Hey, yeah. I was a software engineer at Bitcoin.com starting in 2016, and I joined ABC September of last year, 2020. And right now I work on web products for Bitcoin ABC and the CashApp wallet.
Excellent. Thank you, Joey. Next on my right, I have Chris Troutner. Give us an introduction, please.
Yeah, I'm Chris Troutner. I'm the founder of Fullstack.cash and the Permissionless Software Foundation. I also I'm a Bitcoin.com alumni along with Joey, and been active developer in the Bitcoin Cash space, building development tools for the last 3 years. And big supporter of what ABC is doing.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Next and finally on the panel today is Tobias Ruck you tell us where you're from.
Well, I'm from Germany, and right now I'm in Mexico. I am the founder of Be.Cash. And I'm a supporter of ABC. So yeah.
I guess the big question that we have been hearing is like, how are things going with ABC? So maybe we could start with Antony, and you could just give us an overview of what's happened since November the 15th.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, it feels like a lot's happened, so I'll try to give like a general overview.
Great, thanks.
I mean, I guess so. I don't know where to start. We've basically been busy doing lots of stuff. I know that I often read in like chat rooms and stuff, people say like, wonder what's going on, basically, and wish we communicated more. So hopefully maybe I can fill in some of those gaps right now.
Great.
I mean, part of it is we've basically a lot of what we've been doing is just adjusting to the new reality. So we have to live off of, we basically now have a revenue stream that comes in BCHA. So we need to kind of plan for the future in that. So we have, before the fork last year, starting in, August, September, we were kind of like ramping. We basically expanded our team a bit. And after the fork happened and, we saw what was going on, we've had to basically shrink it a little bit and kind of figure out how to be sustainable in the long term. So that's caused a bit of adjustment. So some things have been a little bit slower due to that. Yeah, I don't know. There's various specific topics I could get into, but I don't know what we should talk about. I mean, basically, I guess the overall message I'd say is like we're feeling pretty positive, and there's lots, like we're basically planning for the future and building for the future. So yeah, there's like a bunch of stuff. We've basically had to take on some additional stuff too. Like now we've had to basically build out more stuff than we have done traditionally. So we're not just only doing like the full node implementation. Now we have to, we have to build infrastructure and, the stuff Joey's doing, for example, and Pierre mentioned he's doing ElectrumABC. So there's a bunch of basically, important infrastructure for the ecosystem that we need to make sure that that's all filled out. And on top of that, there's, organizing things like we're working on a rebrand, which, the status of that is basically there's a firm working on that is a firm that specializes in that kind of stuff. But that went through various ups and downs over the last few months and took a lot longer than we originally anticipated. What else is there? I guess the other big thing is working on Avalanche, which maybe I can get into more details, but that's another thing where we're still like, we're still working on it, and it seems to be progressing, but it's the kind of thing that is not that simple to just, like it takes a lot of, time and thought and effort and so on to make that happen.
For sure. This might be a good time to go into a little bit of detail on Avalanche. I know we've seen a lot of videos about Avalanche and how it works, and there's been some confusion in the community about, well, is it Avalabs or is it something completely separate? So maybe you could...
Yeah, the branding is a bit confusing because I guess the technology itself is generally referred to as Avalanche.
Right.
But then there's also Avalabs, which has a coin. I don't know if their coin is the coin called Avalanche. I don't even know. I guess maybe it is.
I generally refer to it as AVAX, AVAX, just to distinguish that is the coin that comes out of Avalabs as opposed to Avalanche, the protocol.
Yeah. So anyway, we're basically like looking at using the protocol in order to, to start, it would be used for what we call post-consensus, which is essentially, the nodes agreeing in real time on which blocks are considered valid. So when you have a minority proof of work chain like we do, that could give you additional security so that you can have more confidence that you're on the correct chain, basically, and that it's just a way of everyone agreeing that, okay, we all agree that this is the correct chain. And then if someone comes along and tries to reorg it or something, you can say, okay, we all agree that this version is the correct version. So basically the thing about Avalanche is okay, so for one thing, we have it basically, there's parts of it that are already working. So right now you could run a node and manually connect to other nodes and say, hey, let's run the Avalanche protocol between us. And that's something that works right now. We've like tested that out and so on. The thing about Avalanche though is that the way that the network works is kind of critical to how the consensus algorithm works also. So in other words, the way Avalanche works is by basically polling people over the network in real time and then tallying these votes. And then it has a process where, like, you know, in the paper, the original paper that came out, you know, you can show mathematically that it will have certain characteristics. So it'll be resistant to a certain number of, you know, nodes that don't play by those rules. Like, so say like a certain number of nodes purposely try to screw it up or something, you know, and you can, like, in the paper, you can characterize all those parameters, like say, okay, if we use these these parameters, it can be this, you know, resistant to, say, 25% of the nodes are malicious or something like that. And then you can figure out how it works. But basically things like how the network connectivity works affect those assumptions. So that's basically the part we're working on the technical side right now, like figuring out how to do peer discovery, basically. So you want to be able to, like, have nodes kind of automatically go on the network and find other peers and so on. So that part is a work in progress. And the other thing,
Antony?
Yeah.
Since the devs are here, I'm wondering, what I'd like to do is give my understanding of at a very high level of Avalanche on the ABC chain, and then have you correct me if I make any mistakes. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Just because I think the people, I've had the advantage of being close to you guys and seeing a little closer on what you're working on, but I think a lot of people are just lost on the high level stuff.
Can I just finish my high level thing? I just wanted to make one more point, and then because I don't want to forget about it, because the other aspect of it is, like, once the technology is ready, it's not the kind of thing where you can just, like, roll it out and say, okay, run this, because people have to actively participate in it. So that's the other thing we're looking at, is, like, you know, we want big holders and so on. You have to essentially create these like stake proofs for the Sybil resistance. So we're looking at, like, how to make that easier and thinking about you know, basically getting people to participate in it. So that's the whole, so the point, like, basically it's not just like a technical thing. We'll also have to have some kind of campaign to let people know that how to do this and make tools to make it easy and so on. Anyway, that was all I wanted to say.
Well, cool. I definitely want to hear more details on that, because that's, from a technical standpoint, that's what I'm ignorant of, and I want to know as much as you're willing to divulge. But for people who are watching this and are trying to understand the difference between Avalanche that's used by Avalabs and Avalanche that's used by BitcoinABC, is there's two main concepts that of post-consensus and pre-consensus, and you've written about post-consensus. And so pre-consensus gives us secure zero conf. So instant transactions that are confirmed in a few seconds. And that's really good from a UX standpoint. But what a lot of people, I think, have lost in the discussion is that pre-consensus can't happen until post-consensus happens. Post-consensus has to happen first. And post-consensus is essentially overriding proof of work with Avalanche in the case of attack situations like a reorg, where the stakeholders in the network can come together to override what would otherwise be a valid proof of work block, in order to, like, collectively choose, like, basically orphan the block and keep the network running, and thereby avoid 51% attacks. And so that's the main focus right now, is implementing this post-consensus. And if that's nailed down, then you can begin work on pre-consensus. Did I capture that accurately?
I think basically yes. I mean, I think in a way maybe it's been like, I think the more I've learned about it, the more I realize, like, they're not really that separate anyway. Like, I mean, post-consensus is basically just a special case of pre-consensus, because you're just doing it on the whole block. So you can think of, like, the Coinbase transaction is you're just using Avalanche on that particular transaction and saying, like, okay, this Coinbase transaction is not valid and this one is. which essentially like means the whole block is valid or not. So
yeah, I just wanted to give that kind of a overview for the people so that they can kind of understand like what bucket what you're talking about sort of falls into.
Yeah, so to start, it's basically just easier to deal with blocks to start. So because they don't happen as often as transactions happen. So and it's also like in our current situation, it's useful to have it to do that on blocks, so that
And has ABC nailed down any details on things like staking and just all the details that go into that Avalanche side of post consensus?
I don't know. I mean, not really. Like those are all those parameters can be. Yeah, like you need to basically decide on something. Yeah, like that's something I don't know. I'm not working directly on it myself, so I'm not probably the best guy to talk to those specific details. But like right now, we have an implementation of a staking proof. So basically, you would have some coins and you sign something that says like, okay, I sign this thing that says that I can use this other key to vote in the Avalanche, on the Avalanche protocol. So that we have that, but I mean, it's basically what would I call it? It's like it's like a prototype, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it's probably something that people should look at and say like, oh, it doesn't handle, there's some, maybe it needs to, I don't know, like you kind of want to have something that will be good for the long term. So
definitely
right now it's just something where we've been like, okay, you can do this, sign this message, and there's this like format to it, but it should probably be reviewed by other people and stuff like that, who look at it and think like, hey, why does it do it this way instead of this other way, and stuff like that.
So Antony, is that review process open right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's implemented currently in the code. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like maybe someone else wants to talk about it more than me. I haven't looked at that thing specifically. I know Pierre's been looking at it. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I've started looking at this for a week now, because as Antony mentioned, we want to make it easy for people to produce those stakes, so that as many people as possible can run Avalanche. And so one of the ways we want to do this is to have Electrum do it. So that's pretty much ready. I've been working on it for a few days now. One of the aspects is also signing keys without putting them at risk. So for people who have their coins on hardware wallets, we have worked on a way to produce this. But I mean, the actual way it's signed, there are a few more parameters that need to be set, like the minimum amount of coins we want to force people to stake, and there could be some other parameters, but at the moment we don't plan to use them, like the block height, and we can play with these parameters. So yeah, I think Antony said most of it. We have a working implementation, like a prototype, but we still have to discuss it and make some real tests, more tests.
Yeah, so there's still technical work to be done. High level, if you're a user, you care about Avalanche because it makes transactions more reliable and it makes zero conf better. And it's a cool enough feature that somebody made a whole damn cryptocurrency that just does it, and it just went up like 1,000% for no reason. But the whole idea was kind of a heritage Bitcoin Cash thing that people have been trying to do for years. And now we've got a working prototype on ABC, and we're just trying to polish it before we really put it out there.
Great, thank you, Joey, and thank you, Pierre. I didn't realize that Electrum ABC was part of the process for this, and so I think that's important for people to understand as well.
But yeah, it's definitely something where like I should reach out maybe, and like Tobias is here, so I should reach out to people like Tobias and be like, hey, because wallets will want to, like, it's something that wallets and stuff could, will eventually hopefully participate in also, and that's useful. So if there's like certain formats to the staking and so on, maybe
Well,
free to have a
not to crush your dreams, but Be.Cash will primarily use stable coins. And as far as I know, you won't like allow staking stable coins on Avalanche. It would be really stupid. So I'm not sure if it would make sense for Be.Cash to allow staking. But what would be very interesting is for point of sales devices to call Avalanche to be like, oh yeah, this is a valid transaction, this is not.
Yeah.
So that definitely would be something.
Yeah, but you still would want to like speak to the protocol, like you'd want the point of sale or the wallet to like talk to the protocol and like say, okay, this transaction is final or not, right?
How do you mean that? I'm not sure I understood that.
Well, I mean, if you have a transaction, it's still useful for the wallet to be aware of it, whether it's been finalized in the Avalanche protocol or not.
Oh, when it received money, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, when you like top up or something.
Yeah. So
I mean that case is like I'm not too worried about that, because like what is like the attack vector? Like a merchant steals money from their customer or something. I'm not sure if that's normal. So that probably has low priority, but yeah. And yeah, current like one important missing piece is for sure like a stablecoin on ABC. So far we're exclusively on BCH, since there's like not a lot of there's no stablecoins on ABC. So yeah, so we won't be using that until we have something. But yeah, and like once that is the case, then yeah, we'll probably support like multiple chains. With all of the US dollar, then it's like the easiest to X, and like all of the tokens have the same value, so they're like pretty much interchangeable, if that makes sense.
Fullstack.cash has a command line rapid prototype wallet called SLP Cli wallet, and so that would be an excellent thing to get, wallet implementation, or when it's ready for a wallet implementation to use these Avalanche protocols. That I'd love to work with you guys to get it in on that. There's no graphical user interface, so it's very fast to prototype, and then any lessons learned there can be pushed up the stack to like our web wallet or virtually any wallet at that point.
And thank you, Tobias. A little bit more clarity on where things are going with Avalanche. And is there anything further on Avalanche that anybody would like to add? Because I know it's one of the big questions that comes up. And
I think there's just more misunderstanding than understanding. One of the things where a lot of people get hung up is in the case of a conflict, and maybe we can just clear this up because I want to make sure I'm on the right page here, is in the case of a conflict, and I'm speaking specifically about post-consensus here, a lot of people ask like, well, what wins in the case of a conflict, the Avalanche protocol or proof of work? And my understanding is that it's Avalanche. That's like normal. In the normal situation, proof of work just goes on like it always has. It's only in these corner cases where you get 51% attacks and possibly empty blocks, but I'm not sure about that. But specifically in the case of like a 51% attack, the Avalanche post-consensus protocol would override what would otherwise be a valid proof of work block in order to keep everyone organized and working on the same chain.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, basically. I mean, the thing about that is like it's not really any different than, well, it is different, but it's not that different than how things currently are. Like we already, so people think like, oh, this is like this crazy new thing where we're overriding proof of work, but like that already happens. This is just a way of everyone knowing that we're all agreeing on the same thing. So for example, like right now there's, well, I mean, at the most basic level, like, you know, obviously BCH and BTC have higher proof of work, and we don't recognize those as the longest chain. So we have, like, we enforce other rules. And then also, like, if there's a 10 block reorg and stuff like that, everyone, like the nodes who, depending on how they receive that, they'll say like, okay, this is like an unexpected reorg, I'm not gonna switch to that. Or else it'll have to wait till there's like a huge amount of accumulated proof of work. But like the problem with that currently is it's possible for nodes to that just depends on how they see it from their perspective. They just say like, oh, I didn't see this information until now, so I don't think it's valid. But maybe other nodes did see it and, you know, and think it is valid. So Avalanche is just a way of them like communicating with each other and saying, hey, do you guys think this is valid, or do you think that other one's valid? And then if everyone else says, oh, no, yeah, this one's valid and this one isn't, then you switch and say, okay, I'll agree with you guys, basically. So it's basically just like a more robust way of doing stuff that we already do and doing it like a lot better.
For me, of course, is like what, maybe like an ETA, or if that's not possible, like maybe the steps that are like left, like the to-do list, or it to become like production ready on the net.
I think that ties in well with the question that just came in from Anon that says, do you still anticipate Avalanche being implemented in Q1 of 2021?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that's a little bit hard to predict, because in some ways it seems very close because we can see like the shape of it, and there's a lot of parts that are already implemented, but in another sense it's kind of hard to predict because yeah, it's just hard to know how long things will take, basically.
So maybe a more specific question just came in from AB. It says, how will Avalanche eventually be implemented via one of the scheduled bi-yearly upgrades?
Well, it doesn't really rely on, it doesn't necessarily rely on the upgrade schedule.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be built in.
It doesn't have to necessarily coincide with that, although, I mean, basically what we're working on right now is wrapping our head around this and trying to come up with like a rollout plan, because that's one of the things that's more difficult about this compared, or not more difficult, but just there's more, we basically have to have a rollout plan compared to other features where we can just like put it in the code and then release it and then it just rolls out by itself. So like, yeah, just getting people, like we need people to we'll need people like large holders especially, and maybe exchanges, whoever has like large amounts of coins, to be like, okay, here's how you produce your staking proofs to participate in Avalanche, because you need, like, for it to work properly, you want a lot of, you know, honest participants participating in it. We don't want someone who has a lot of coins but is trying to mess with the system to be like, you know, try to screw it up somehow. So yeah, anyway, that's, well, so basically the rollout plan and all that is probably more, that might end up being more. So we'll probably want to have like a, you know, a trial period where we run it or don't activate it by default necessarily, and people can try it out and participate as they want to. And then, you know, maybe farther down the road, have it be on by default or something like that. So there's like various steps along the way. I don't know, but we're like moving forward. So That's the good news. The bad news is I don't know. It's hard to predict exactly how long things will take.
It does sound like there's a lot of moving parts, and I know that behind the scenes you guys have got to coordinate all of these pieces. So
Yeah.
yeah. Is there a correlation between this and the Global Network Council? The reason I bring it up is because it is a question that gets asked regularly.
Not really, no.
Okay.
They're basically totally independent.
You talked about large stakeholders, and I wondered if that applied.
Well, I mean, it has crossed my mind that using the Avalanche proofs might be a good way to like vote to prove stake for the GNC also.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't like, that's just more of a future. That would be kind of maybe a nice to have tie in, but I don't think that that's necessary right now. We'll probably, yeah, we're not gonna like plan on that immediately.
Okay. So it does bring up the question, which has been asked quite a bit because of the delay in the GNC. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of where things are with the GNC right now?
I mean, we're basically looking at probably trying to organize something within the next, within the first quarter, roughly. I don't know. I guess I'd say it's something that's, yeah, like it hasn't, we kind of wanted to get all the other stuff. Like there was other things that were higher priority, basically.
Right.
Like trying to deal with, yeah, like reorganizing ourselves, getting like all the technical stuff on the right path. And we're also trying to deal with the rebrand. So yeah, but we haven't forgotten about the GNC. It just kind of fell by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, so the GNC was designed preliminarily with ABC's framework being the system for Bitcoin Cash. And in the fork last year, like that's not where we're at today. We're dealing with a significantly less amount of money. And we're just trying to figure out the best way to plan and allocate it. But we've published a lot of information about how we plan to go forward, and we're still sticking with the original plan, adjusted for kind of the reality of the last few months. But anybody can go watch the dev address, and we'll publish all the transparency reports for where the money goes.
And one of the things that we touched on at the very beginning of this meeting, but I think we went over a little too fast, is this idea that ABC is now a vertically integrated company. They're not just a full node like they were in the past. Like they've got a lot of backporting from core to do. They're building the ElectrumCash or ElectrumABC wallet. They're building CashApp and the browser extension. These are all things that ABC would not have taken on in the past, but given where things are, those are the things that have been prioritized. And I don't think that's been, effectively communicated. I think that is that reality is lost to a lot of the people in the chat rooms. They don't understand that like Bitcoin ABC not only has less operating capital, they also have way more obligations, because now they've got to essentially be a vertically integrated company.
Yeah.
Not to mention planning and executing on a large meeting to try to actually coordinate with stakeholders how to best spend funds like this, right? Like that itself really is its own job. So that's also something that's now kind of in the dev queue. And it's really important, because if we want to stay competitive and keep advancing tech, like we have to be able to allocate that appropriately. And that's one of the main competitive advantages of ABC in the first place. So it's not forgotten, but we're now like a much bigger company doing more things. And this is also a thing. Like it's not just a protocol of, oh, hit the switch and the GNC happens. Like that has to be designed, it has to be planned, and it has to be executed like everything else.
That's great. Actually, it gives me a sense of confidence in Not that I've ever lost it, but I do have a good sense of confidence in the planning work that's going in. I think one of the reasons we've held off on having a developer meeting like this until now, 15th of February, is because we didn't have a real good understanding of how much was going on in the background. So asking questions in this format, I think, is going to be really helpful for people. I'm hoping we can do this on a regular basis as we go forward, if you guys are willing. But it does seem to be providing a lot of good information, so that's appreciated.
The other thing, like, and this is just kind of my own thoughts, is like if you look at the markets, it seems like there's still a lot of like big BCH holders dumping into the dumping their coins in the market. So I mean, we can't wait forever for that to play out, but in a way that's kind of like a necessary like growing pain or like separation process that we're going through right now. So, you know, like it's like we want to eventually, like, the people who hold BCHA or whatever the new brand is called will hopefully be like people who have, you know, who support the project and so on. Right now we're still in that transition phase where people are like who don't support it are trying to dump their coins into the market, and that's, you know, so that's just something to keep in mind. Like,
Yeah, I mean, more time means a better design for the system, and it also means that BCHA will be worth more money. So we'll actually be making more critical decisions going forward.
yeah.
All right.
And you can scale and move a lot faster than you could have if you're still part of BCH. Like, one of the things that keeps me up at night is especially with the price spike in BCH, is if adoption happens incredibly rapidly, like in the period of like 3 months, we get 1,000x more users of any cryptocurrency. It doesn't matter if it's BTC, BCH, or BCHA. It like adoption could actually happen that fast, and as a smaller vertically integrated company, you guys can pivot and adapt very quickly. Whereas if there's a scaling bottleneck on BCH, I have no idea how that would play out.
I'm going to make the assumption that the Avalanche discussion is good for now. Could we get Tobias first to give us a little bit of an overview of what you're working on with ABC? And I know some of us know this already, but on the ABC chain, how are you doing things right now, Tobias?
So this might be a bit of a bummer, but right now I'm not doing like a lot with the ABC chain. I mean, I implemented a SLP Explorer just because otherwise it'll be very hard to do any kind of SLP work. And Joey has already been pretty helpful with like finding bugs and like, yeah, giving me reproducible stuff. I'm still working on fixing that because, I mean, there's a lot of things to worry about, not just technical, also, okay, where do I sleep, stuff like that. And yeah, therefore, yeah, that's there. Yeah, I've also published like a while ago, a BCHD client for SLP, which works really well so far. I mean, actually it doesn't work well. It works really well if you just plug it directly into a Bitcoin D instance or a Bitcoin ABC. But I think those are just issues that are in BCHD inherently. I had the same issues on, yeah, I had pretty much exactly the same issues on BCH. So yeah, that's probably unavoidable. And we, yeah, we're like, Be.Cash currently is using like exactly the setup where it's like Bitcoin D just plugged directly into a BCHD instance that then benefits of like a very secure instance, like not getting out of consensus, because Bitcoin D is very good at that, but also having like this powerful indexer of SLP transactions. And like just the fact that it checks submitted transactions for SLP validity makes us able to move like so much quicker. Yeah, other than that, like on the Be.Cash front, we are already having merchants who accept Be.Cash, currently only on BCH, but we're pretty much, since there's like USDH and USDT, there wasn't really like consensus which one we should use. It kind of evolved to be like multi-coin by default. So I'm not sure if we want to like converge on one coin eventually, but like it looks like we will be multi-coin from the very beginning. So we will switch to ABC or like support ABC as well, if it makes sense and everything, because we obviously have a few benefits. There is like the one issue is that, oh, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to say something?
Oh, I was going to ask you, Tobias, about the block explorer that you put up for SLP tokens. If you could just go into that, like what's the infrastructure running it? What was the motivation there?
Oh yeah, totally. Okay, yeah. So basically what I wanted is an explorer that's kind of similar to the Bitcoin.com explorer, because it has like very nice SLP support, only that it like doesn't like just show me, okay, I can't parse SLP and just, you know, so in other words, it always works. Also that it's like very, very fast. So the design decisions, because the BCH explorer can be very frustrating, or if you just want to check if something is valid. So I made sure that it's like very, very fast. For that, I'm using RocksDB for indexing, which is surprisingly fast. And yeah, that plugs directly into a SLP instance. Not SLP, BCHD SLP instance. So whenever there's a new transaction, it just puts it into the mempool of the Explorer. And then once there's a block, it puts the block into, like it moves all, basically removes all the mempool transactions and moves all the transactions from the block into the whole Explorer. And then it fetches the mempool again, which seems to work very well. And you can try it out. It's at explorer.be.cash. Yeah, it's geared for developers. So if you're just like trying to check your balance and everything, there might be like superfluous data there. But yeah, if like there's a lot of demand for like just ordinary people wanting to explore SLP,
So
we might want to add that. But so far, that's not really our goal.
So are you using BCHD for the SLP indexer, or did you say you built your own SLP indexer?
No, we use BCHD indexer, but then we also index stuff that BCHD doesn't provide, like block metadata, like for example, the number of transactions in a block that's like very relevant if you have like a list of blocks, but BCHD only like doesn't give us transactions. And then if you were to be like, give me the latest 100 blocks, I just want to see like how many transactions, and you basically have to fetch like all transactions, which would be very slow. So what we do instead is just like, oh, a new block, okay, let's store the number of transactions in that block in our RocksDB instance. Yeah, it's you know, so basically our stack is we have Bitcoin D, which indexes everything. Then we have plugged into that BCHD SLP, like Go ABC SLP, and then that also indexes everything plus SLP. And then we have a RocksDB with Rust, which just indexes like metadata. It doesn't even index every transaction, does it? Yeah, I think it indexes every transaction, but just like okay, this is the hash, this is the addresses, stuff like that. So it can be fetched very quickly.
Very cool.
Thank you, Tobias. The good, the bad, and the ugly, as we like to say. But we're still in early stages with the development of the ABC chain. So I suspect we'll have opportunities to move further.
Yeah, and if there's like any issues, with the Explorer, just write me a message on Telegram, or there's actually a contact address on the Explorer if you just want to write there, and I check that. And then, like, once things settle down here a bit, then I can fix all of those. But so far, it seems usable. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Tobias. The next person on the list of people to give us a little bit of information is Chris Troutner. Chris, do you want to just bring us up to date on things that you're developing on the ABC chain, and maybe share your screen if you have some examples to show us?
Oh, boy, I wish I didn't really plan for that, but really, there's two main organizations that I'm a part of right now: Fullstack.cash and the Permissionless Software Foundation. Fullstack.cash offers blockchain as a service, and so basically what that means is we provide infrastructure for companies like exchanges and phone app. Any company that would build a phone app or a web app, they can just focus on their app and or their exchange, the thing that makes them money, the thing that's important to them, and that way they don't have to worry about keeping a full node running, figuring out why SLPDB just fell over, or like why what an indexer is and why it's needed. Like, they don't need to really understand these things. We provide a REST API, so you can use any programming language to connect to that. We also offer a JavaScript library if they're more of a JavaScript based company, with a few more tools. That's basically the gist of Fullstack.cash. And we offer both infrastructure on both the BCH and the BCHA chains, or the eCash chain, whatever it ends up being called. But it's live and it's available now. And what we're trying to do is build it in such a way that companies can easily switch between blockchains. Right now, we've got it to just one single line of code change. You can change one line, and all of a sudden everything just works on the BCHA chain, and you can switch back and forth. So that's been pretty attractive. We're growing. The word's starting to get out there in the industry that, hey, why don't you just focus on what makes you money and let Fullstack.cash handle all the back end stuff you'd rather not worry about. And then the Permissionless Software Foundation, Fullstack.cash is really like the flagship project for the Permissionless Software Foundation, and I'll just call it the PSF because it's a mouthful. But that's essentially a blockchain agnostic organization. We're working with Ava Labs. We're working with BitcoinABC. We have regular technical steering committee meetings and community committee meetings. And we're trying to find solutions that sort of, we're business oriented. So the PSF has taken the stance that we're living in a multi-blockchain world, and tokens are a way to move between blockchains. And so that's sort of what the PSF is focused on. And so the way that attitude manifests itself is like I said, in Fullstack.cash, how we provide tools for both blockchains, one code base that you can easily switch between blockchains on, create tokens on both blockchains, and soon we're going to have a bridge to let you easily move tokens between blockchains. And so that's basically the service that Fullstack.cash provides, and the focus of the Permissionless Software Foundation.
Great, Chris. Thank you. Any questions for Chris about the things that he's working on?
Just to understand it, so you basically provide like a JavaScript library so you can interface with like all the blockchains that you support. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, right now the JavaScript library is focused on BCH and BCHA. though everything in those libraries like work on both chains. That's the one line code change. We're also working with Avalanche, but they have their own JavaScript library, and things are, I mean, just fundamentally architecturally different on that chain. So the library doesn't translate quite so easily, but plus they already have a wonderful suite of software that, so we don't need to carry that load.
Makes sense. Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Any further questions for Chris on the things he's working on? Hearing none. I'm just going to point out that someone in the audience has said Tobias wanted to make one more point related to Bitcoin ABC just before Chris interjected and asked about the Explorer. Do you remember what that was, Tobias?
Yeah, so basically what we're looking for is like reliable SLP support. Yeah, especially if it like integrates neatly with BCH, like something that Chris Troutner said is of course interesting. Although we use Rust in our backend, just like mostly because it's much more reliable, like much more reliable software. I was working with Vin, and we had a lot of like number issues, like floating point numbers, and yeah, those are the thing in Rust. Yeah, like all C++ devs will be like, yeah, that's true. And yeah, it integrates very nicely with gRPC. So as long as we have good gRPC support, then it'll be like probably one. I'm not making any promises, but once Avalanche has like AvaX has good gRPC support, we might be thinking about adding that, as long as it supports like the smart contracts we require. Yeah, other than that, maybe what would be nice would be like a how do you say that, like a more like some kind of like deadline where it's like, okay, we'll have this until then, and this can be like a loose deadline where it's like oh, it's like, I don't know, 6 months or whatever. Then okay, yeah, just so it makes it easier to plan, because right now I kind of like betted on ABC, but now like the GNC is delayed. I mean, Avalanche didn't really have a deadline, but having something like that, and yeah, like yeah, I mean, of course, that's very difficult to do because, you know, there's so many moving parts and whatnot. So that might be a bit of a big thing to ask. But just for me, that wouldn't make things so much easier and like tell my customers, tell my potential investors to be like, hey, this is like on the plan, this is what we're working on, and this will make it much easier if we want to support ABC.
That makes perfect sense, Tobias. And
I just wrote that down on my piece of paper, Tobias. We'll do our best.
It also falls in line with a number of questions that have come from some of the people that are involved with the Korean community. So I'd like to just go through these questions and then we can move on to more specifics. And so the first question was, is there anything that is being talked about with Coinbase? That's probably a simple yes or no.
Basically, no is the answer to that. So I assume he's talking about the company Coinbase.
Yes.
Just like one thing that, just as a side note, like a lot of people get confused because we have the new Coinbase rule, which has nothing to do with the company Coinbase. Right. So just so make sure, like, I think a lot of people think like, oh, that means Coinbase is funding you guys, the company, but it's not. Like the Coinbase, that refers to like the block reward, which we get which is funding us, but it has nothing to do with the company Coinbase.
Okay. Number two, in relation to the deposit and withdrawal of Binance, it is said to be a network problem, but this also seems to be the foundation's indifference. I hope you do your best. This is one that comes up all the time. I think it's good to have it out on the table.
I mean, I can talk about this if you want.
Yeah, please.
Like in the case of Binance, we do have direct communication with Binance, and we provide them with technical support, and we have been like doing that over the last few months and recently. So, but yeah, other than that, like I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for Binance, so I have no idea what they're planning to do. But yeah, we are in contact with them, and we do like try to help them out and give them technical support.
I think the important answer here is that you guys are doing your best to work with people like Binance.
Yeah. We do try to like talk to as many like exchanges and companies like that as possible and help them out as necessary.
Other questions that in this that have been asked by the same gentleman are probably more on the social aspect, and again it comes down to the communications that are coming from the team and the people that are supporting ABC, and so I think that in a way this kind of a meeting is probably important for the general community to see the faces and see people that are out there doing things. So because the questions always come back to when are you doing this, when are you doing that, and if we have a bit of a sense of what those things are, then it helps to be able to answer those questions for people in the community, and even people like Tobias who wants to know more about what's happening within. So increased communication between developers is critical. I don't want to go past the two of the most important parts of what ABC is doing, and one is CashApp, and Joey and I have had some conversations, and I'm hoping to get a video out soon on more detailed information about CashApp and the tools that are being created. But it's great to have Pierre here because maybe initially we could just talk a little bit more about what's happening with ElectrumABC. Pierre, would you mind doing that?
Yeah, I can talk a bit about Electrum. So Electrum is something we have forked shortly after the hard fork in November, and we have made it work for Bitcoin ABC, for BCHA. So there hasn't been a lot of specific development for BCHA on Electrum, but we have done a few. We are still, I mean, it's obviously very useful software because everyone has used it, and it's a very good toolbox. Our problem with ElectrumABC is that the code base has some quality issues. So to add new features to it is actually a bit delicate. It's a bit difficult. We can do it obviously because small features are okay to implement, but anything that requires moving around code and refactoring would take a lot of resources due to the state the code base is in. So that's probably something that will need to happen in the future when more resources are available. In the meantime, we are backporting ElectrumCash, so we stay on top of all the bugs that they find, and we have added some features, some fixes on our side as well. So one of the examples I did recently is being able to restore a seed phrase that's not in English, because, for example, the Bitcoin.com wallet used to generate French or localized seed phrases, and at the moment there is not many options to restore them in any other software. I think even Bitcoin.com, the wallet itself, does no longer allow to restore them. So that's something that seems important. As you mentioned earlier, we will add some support for building Avalanche proofs as well. That's already almost finished. I mean, it will evolve with the rest of the job work on Avalanche, but we have something that works. So I don't know, is there any specific questions about something that that people want to see on it? I can answer to more specific questions if you want.
Any questions for Pierre, Tobias?
Yeah, maybe will you eventually want to, because I know you can run CashApp in like just on the computer like that, with maybe with like Electrum, the JavaScript library. Do you want to move eventually from ABC completely to CashApp, or do you want to support both ElectrumABC and CashApp? Yeah, is that the goal, or how do you see that?
At the moment, the cooperation with CashApp is just to support each other's like QR codes and URL payment URLs. I don't know if everyone knows, but Electrum is it's a Python library. So in some ways, having it's a Python software. I mean, a Python application, but it has lots of pieces in it that are good usable Python code as well. So I don't know if the plan is to ever stop doing Electrum at all. I think before doing that, we would need to provide something else that does at least the same kind of toolbox job. And I don't think Joey can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a web wallet should do that kind of complicated stuff. Like Electrum is an ElectrumCash was already a kind of a demonstrator of everything that is possible with Bitcoin Cash and now with BCHA. So we need to keep supporting everything that we need to support on it. So does that answer your question?
That makes sense. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and maybe like if that's the case, then maybe we'll. Oh, do you plan to have like a SLP version of ElectrumABC, or is that not really on the roadmap? Because CashApp currently supports SLP.
Yeah, it's currently not on the roadmap for me, but that's the same thing. It can be done with additional resources if needed. So we also would like to have a bit more, like you just did, like requests, so we can know what actually is important to do and what should be prioritized. So at the moment, it doesn't do anything. I don't support any special SLP editions of Electrum.
Interrupted. Joey, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just agreeing with the answer. There's a reason pretty much every cryptocurrency has an Electrum wallet and then also mobile wallets and different user-facing wallets. They do different things. And I think even ElectrumCash you can get as a mobile app, but there's a reason almost nobody does. It's just a better experience on desktop and different tool, different features.
Yeah, that's great. I just want to, I'm just going to share my screen for a sec for those that may not have seen this yet. But this is where the information can be obtained about ElectrumABC, and of course, as I scroll down, you'll see that there's the GitHub and the source links as well, and a place for people who want to ask further questions. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. So thank you, Pierre. Joey, do you want to give us a quick overview on where things are at with CashTab?
Sure, yeah. So CashTab's a web wallet. The main point of CashTab is to be simple to develop on and simple to use. So as a web wallet, you can use it on your phone. It's mobile optimized. You can use it on an iPhone. You can use it on Android. You can also just use it on your desktop. And the most important feature of CashTab is a browser extension. So I think the main reason to build something in JavaScript and to use a JavaScript backend is that you can have a browser extension wallet that just adds a cash balance to any interaction you have with a web page. Now, there's already some more famous wallets that do this. So MetaMask does it on Ethereum, and it's pretty much the entire ecosystem goes through that browser extension wallet. From the Bitcoin Cash world, there's a pretty usable wallet called Badger, although it hasn't been updated in many, many months, and it's quite slow because it's an Ethereum fork. So with CashTab, it's actually just built ground up to work with Bitcoin ABC. It's much faster than Badger. It already has its own components library. Documentation is up. If you go to docs.cashtabapp.com, the extension's available in the Google Chrome store. The wallet itself works great on mobile. You can install it as a web app, or works great on desktop. So there's a lot more features we can add, but ultimately, like we're talking about with Electrum, at a certain point, you want the web wallet to just be easy to use and to just work. So right now I'm spending most of my time on improving the components that will help the browser extension interact with web pages and building some showcase apps that can show how this would work for other pages. Another thing that's kind of interesting about Bitcoin ABC is like really, we've only had one developer doing this and we've only just started. And we're already at the functionality of Badger's Chrome extension. And we already have that web interactivity available, and it's just a matter of extending and keeping the building going. So it's a foundation, it's easy to use, and everybody should check it out.
And I absolutely concur. I have an interview with Joey coming up where we go into a little bit more detail on how CashTab works and how easy it is to use as well, and also the opportunities for people who want to develop with the tools that are available that Joey's creating with CashTab. So I'm just going to do a quick screen share of that particular application so that you can see what it looks like. I think it doesn't get much simpler. It's a wallet. You can send and you have the settings and you can reveal your seeds. And you can have multiple wallets. So we'll go into much more detail on that later, but it's certainly one of the things that as a general user and not a programmer, I really appreciate the work that's gone into CashTab. So.
Yeah, also, I just want to echo the speed and efficiency with which this web browser extension and the CashTab app has been built. Entrepreneurs in this space should be paying attention to this. Joey got this product out in an amazing record time at far lower cost than anybody who's done anything similar has ever done. And he's also been an active contributor in the Permissionless Software Foundation. A lot of the infrastructure behind it is based on the core software that we use at Fullstack.cash. So Joey's been an excellent collaborator, and it's a perfect example of how a business that stays focused and on exactly what they're trying to do, leverages the tools, is really careful about not reinventing the wheel and just focused on their core value proposition. I think there's a big lesson to be learned here. This is a good case study for entrepreneurs who are looking to get into the crypto space.
Yep, heartily agree. Anyone here on the panel have a question or a comment for Joey?
Yeah. So the web wallet is licensed under MIT, correct?
Yeah, it's totally open source. Anybody can do what they want with it. The main reason we started building it was just to kind of have a development library, and then it's turned into a little bit more than that. But yeah, I hope a lot of people start building on it or turn it into whatever they want.
Yeah, because that of course would be interesting for Be.Cash, especially our architecture is so that you can hook other like devices and programs and whatnot into like your account, so you can access it from multiple points. So that would certainly be interesting to be like, okay, like that of course would be all implemented by Be.Cash, like the stuff on top of that. But having like that feature, just have like an extension and then it integrates into the website, that would be very interesting. So you might be like the wrong person to judge, or maybe the right person. So how would you compare the code quality between like CashApp and Python? If like, do you use TypeScript or do you use JavaScript or?
Yeah, right now CashApp is just JavaScript. I would like to get TypeScript in there.
How does that
Components
work?
library uses TypeScript. So I have better unit testing for the components library, since everything there is in TypeScript. It builds out. And that's built off of legacy Badger components. So it's stuff that's already been used, for years in the ecosystem. But yeah, TypeScript would be better to get on CashApp. It's just not there yet. But again, it's open source at MIT. So if anybody wants to put it there, that'd be fantastic. As far as code quality in general, everybody has library preferences, Python, JavaScript, all of that. There's a lot of good dependency libraries for web wallets in JavaScript and React particularly. So building quickly tends to be better with JavaScript right now. Other than that, though, I don't really have personal preferences. Like, I think ideally mobile wallets that are native are always faster and great to have on a mobile app, but they're harder to build off of. They're harder to do a browser extension with. You have all sorts of other trade-offs. So CashApp has a certain place in the ecosystem. I don't think it's going to be the whole ecosystem. The main point with CashApp is browser extension and developer tools.
Great.
Yeah, like that's, I just wanted to echo
Okay,
that part.
pretty much
because,
answers it.
like the developer tools part, maybe you can expand on this, Joey, but yeah, that's a part where I don't know if people really realize that is like, that's a major goal is yeah, to have it be something where you have a bunch of tools that other developers can build stuff on. And I think the plan is to kind of build a bunch of different sort of like proof of concept apps on it, on the developer tools, things like maybe, like a merchant app or point of sale terminal or various other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Even right now, if you just go to, what did I register for it? Components.cash.com, or it's on the BCHA page. There's a link, and we can put it in maybe the notes for this when it goes out. But there's already a storybook library up there, and if you have the extension installed, you can already look at some of the components. So there's kind of simple QR codes, invoice type components, where if you click it, it'll pull up the transaction specified in your CashApp extension, and then the user can manually approve it for it to go through. Which, MetaMask and Badger do the same thing, but the CashApp extension is significantly faster.
Joey, is it possible for you to share your screen and just show us that?
While Joey's getting that ready, if there's developers watching this, one of the things I'd like to see more community participation, or I'm hoping to see, is Gatsby themes. A lot of the tools that Joey's built is based on Gatsby. A lot of the tools at Fullstack.cash are based on Gatsby. And it'd be great if we could start seeding the community with Gatsby themes so that entrepreneurs could come along and replace their PayPal buy now button with a simple, buy now with BCHA, button.
All right, is this going through for the screen?
Yeah, this looks good, Joey. It's coming through loud and clear.
Yeah, so this website right here is just the showcase library for the components. And the plan is to add more features, more abilities to it right now. But even what you have, like here, this is the CashApp badge component. So if you're building a web page and you want to have a way for users to pay an invoice, like in this case, it's for 5 cents, this will automatically calculate how much that is in BCHA. You can customize how it looks. You can give it different labels. You don't have to program this whole thing yourself. There's already a component library, so you just drop it in and give it some props. It supports a bunch of currencies, so it's not just US dollars. And then once this is on your web page, if your user has the extension installed, they can just click it. It'll open the extension with that transaction as you've specified here. Like, you'll program this address in, then they can just send it, right? And then you can also hook it up so that after this transaction is complete, the web page has some other interactivity to it. Here we go.
I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
It pulls it up. It's pre-populated. I'll close it again. Open it again. And this also works if a user scans this QR code and pays it that way. The extension or the web page will recognize it as paid. So you don't only have to pay it with the extension. It'll work either way.
Does it use WebSocket, or how does it connect?
Right now, it has to just ping the API. Yeah.
But okay. Yeah.
Could use WebSockets, so maybe it's
Eventually,
not as quick as you want it to be. But as you can see, there's like a few different ways of customizing this. And currently, I don't have support for SLPA tokens in terms of payment recognition with the app, but you can still make the components and do that invoice. So,
do you plan on supporting BIP70 for these?
Yes, we don't currently, but we plan on doing it. And Badger and Badger CashApp components do it, so we would do it in the
especially for SLP. BIP70 is very important because like there can go like the things can go much more wrong. So BIP70 support would be pretty important. But yeah, that's good to hear.
But this also works. It's a totally different approach than how Badger does it and how MetaMask does it, because it's just interacting directly with the React app of the extension. So it's a lot easier to communicate the specific details of the transaction, because then that can get parsed by the extension. You're not relying totally on parameters or other limitations that are just like in, say, Node software. But anyway, it's a starting point. So we're going to get BIP70. We're going to have, I'm sure, swankier things you can do with these components and more integration with the extension itself. But this already exists right now. So like developers can install them, they can build stuff. You can just add payments to any web page that you want to take cash for instead of just credit cards, for example. And that's already there, but it'll get a lot better.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Joey. And as I say, we're going to go into much more detail on this over the next couple of weeks, so that people will understand that they do need to have some understanding of programming, but there'll be services that will provide that programming for them. I'm looking at some of those people right now. So, but thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like, I'm not sure why I haven't seen that yet. Like the components library. Maybe it just didn't show up in my Twitter, but yeah, that looks very interesting to me for sure. Yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yeah, so like there's lots of things to complain about with JavaScript, but the advantage is you can just get stuff like that out there, and then a lot of other people are building on it. So it just works really well with other existing web pages and other existing apps.
Great work. Thank you, Joey. Anything anyone else would like to add before we wrap up and take any final questions?
I'll just throw out there that the ABC chain needs a stablecoin, and if there's anybody watching this who wants to, build one, Fullstack.cash, has tools to help you with that. I've been in talks with a couple different companies that are thinking about building the stablecoin on the ABC chain. So just want to throw that out there. Let's keep that discussion going. I'd like to see stablecoins in pegged to different fiats. I'd like to see more than one. I think diversity is an advantage here. Smaller countries and entrepreneurs in smaller countries are beginning to wake up to this notion that stablecoins are important, and they don't necessarily need permission to create one. And bigger's better usually when it comes to centralized stablecoins, but we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg around innovation with tokens and stablecoins. And so if there's just anybody out there who is interested in pursuing that, technologically, there are solutions for that. What is needed is execution, organization, capital. I can't provide that. But if there's a technical question about how a stable coin would be created and maintained, I can help with that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. In Saipan, we I think I'm not sure if you all saw that in America, a stablecoin basically has the same legal status as a check. So banks can just issue that as they wish. So I'm not sure how much I can say, but we are in talks with some bank who is located in Saipan, who are very interested in stablecoin support. Yeah, we are not sure which chain, like we're mostly like consulting them right now. We're not sure which chain to do that on, but if ABC is like has like any thoughts on that, then feel free to contact me, and I can maybe provide some additional info or like explain where pain points would be, or like have a discussion on that. If that sounds interesting to ABC.
Well, on that topic, one of the big focuses of the Permissionless Software Foundation is cross-chain tokens. So right now we're focused on Avalanche, BCH, and the ABC eCash chain, and moving tokens in between. So I'm hoping that's an excellent use case for stablecoins, being able to create a token once and then move it across and use it on all three chains. That's a technology that we're developing. We'd love to work with people on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, of course it adds more overhead, because it's a Japanese bank, or it's like people in Japan, that we can't like overwhelm them.
Yeah,
but
the main difference is like Tether right now, they have their stablecoin on several different blockchains, but they don't move tokens across chains. They just maintain an inventory on each chain. And so that's the paradigm shift here is you could actually just have one token and keep track of it across all chains. And so it's like if a token moves from one chain to the other, it literally leaves the one chain and appears on the other chain. And so you just have one.
Also, basically you have like I'm not sure if that's a correct analogy, but something similar to a hash time lock contract, but instead it's a burn, or do you like an atomic burn or something like that?
Yeah, it's not atomic, but it is a burn. It burns. There's and it's on chain, so it is trustless and provable once it's recorded to the chain. So like it's auditable, so you can actually prove that the token was removed from the one chain and a corresponding token appeared on the other chain.
So this would be like the token issuer would do that, like switching, moving.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it would work for like a centralized stablecoin issuer like Tether or USDH.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, that sounds very good. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to get feedback from ABC on that topic. Like, if there's any thoughts by them on that.
I mean, I'll just say like, this is definitely something we're interested in for sure. Like, and even if it's just like talking and you like telling us like what you need or whatever, like that's information, because obviously like that's the whole point of what we're trying to do is like build a system that like people can use and build on top of. So if you come and say like, hey, this is a problem, or there's this thing missing that I need or whatever, like even that's useful. But yeah, we're definitely like wanting to facilitate that kind of thing.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I already gave like some feedback on some other stuff, so just so you guys are aware of like what, because I can't just wish reality as I wanted to. So that's and that's so like where we are standing.
One of the messages I kind of wanted to get across to people is like like things are basically moving in a positive direction. Like we're all feeling, basically optimistic about everything. But I also just want to like make sure people have their correct level of expectation, because I mean, you can look at the coin price and like calculate how much money that is. So in terms of like how much funding we're getting. So we're like we feel pretty good about things, and we're building and like planning for the future and so on. But when people, a lot of people like kind of want everything to happen immediately and so on. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the point is like we hear those messages and we're working towards things. But I think people should be optimistic, but also realistic.
I realized that some of the questions had been answered by Joey, and so there was a series of questions, and I think it might be a good idea to just wrap this up by some of these questions that were asked. And I thank you, Joey, for doing this. I didn't see that it had been done.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about like, oh, what can we do to get Coinbase to support it? You know, like calling Coinbase and asking them to support it is not something that's going to work or something that's just going to happen. I think first the rebrand has to happen. That has to be pulled off. And part of that rebrand is going to be working with exchanges, because we will need exchanges to help us out, right? To change the ticker, to change whatever else we want to go through with that. A rebrand, I think, would make it more palatable for Coinbase to support, more likely. But at the same time, like, I don't think that's really the biggest opportunity for appreciating the price of BCHA and growing the ecosystem. But it's not something that we're ignoring or forgetting about. The next question is on Binance, and I'd say just kind of the same thing. We're going to be working with a vendor through the rebrand, and one of their jobs is going to be dealing with exchanges directly. So we don't have to be like seen as, oh, those guys are kind of pestering us. Like, we're available and we'll help out, and we're not going to forget about it. But we'll also have professionals managing that interface. The next couple, I think, were a little bit more difficult for me to parse, but one, lots of cultural differences. We're sensitive to that. I wouldn't say we're necessarily experts on it. So with the rebrand and part of that package, we'll be working with local marketing teams and local firms who are more experts at that. So part of that is just us sort of admitting like, hey, we're not going to have the best approach everywhere. So we're going to work with people who will know better than us. The next one, window of communication, participation. Yeah, so we're doing that here, but also like we're available, you know, like I put my email address in the answer, and I'm happy to field any kind of random questions that come up about CashApp or ABC. And if it's not something I know, like I can find somebody else on the team who can help out. And then the last one, when are you starting the rebranding? So that's already started. So we have a vendor that's working on it. And as far as like the release and the timing, you know, like ideally it would have been several months ago, but it wasn't. So it's going to be as soon as we can get it together. But we're not waiting to start that work. That work is ongoing throughout, like, while we're talking about it.
Yeah, and just to fill in, like, just one thing that you mentioned that reminded me is like, it's more than just being like, oh, here's a new name and a logo. Like, it includes, you know, ongoing marketing and promotion, like, for all, you know, going forward. So
yeah, like a lot of the, maybe people are like, oh, there's not enough communication. Like, we're a developer team and we do communicate and we try to do it, but we're going to get some people who are communicators to handle that better, and especially like more, you know, locally appropriate ways. But in the meantime, like, we're open to it. So just reach out and ask us questions if you need to.
Again, I'd like to thank you all for attending today and look forward to chatting again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
It was great.
Thanks.